If you've never been to United Motorsports, you need to go. If you live anywhere in central Kentucky, even if you're not planning on buying something right now, you need to go to United Motorsports just to check it out. It's like an off-roader's paradise up here. Every ATV, side-by-side, dirt bike, motorcycle, everything you could think of, they've got here. You can see the 2024 versus 2023 Yamaha Grizzly right there, which we're going to talk about more in this video. But yeah, these guys have just about everything except the kitchen sink in terms of off-road machines at this one location in Lexington. You got to go check it out. Here's the new Polaris Expedition. This is the closest you're ever going to get to a Jeep without buying a Jeep. Just crazy how complicated and complex this UTV is. I mean, it's practically like a Jeep that's not street legal. This particular one is a crew cab model, as you can see. I don't know if Polaris calls it crew cab or not, but I mean, that's pretty much what it is. These things have full interiors in them, power windows, windshields, roofs, automotive style latches on the exterior part of the door there. I mean, they've got just about everything you can think of. You got the large navigation screen in there. Lots of leg room. I'm about a 6'3" guy. Lots of leg room. No problems there whatsoever. Nice big fat steering wheel to hang on to. It does have a tilt feature on it. Didn't seem like it wanted to telescope, but it does tilt up and down. So that's a pretty nice thing to have. You got a nice shifter there on the console, a glove box to put things in. There's a console storage area also. And the console storage area is actually lockable, which is why I couldn't open it here in this clip. There's a key lock right there. So you could put valuables in there if you're out on the trail somewhere. You got cup holders there. Check out this this headliner that's in the roof to protect you from heat and noise. I thought that was kind of interesting. With a fully enclosed cab like this, noise probably would be an issue, I would imagine. Got a rear view mirror there. I mean, it's decked out pretty much like a base model Jeep. It really is. Here's your controls for your four-wheel drive system and all of that. I mean, it's a pretty cool machine, don't get me wrong. The one thing I don't like about it is this hump in the seat right here. If it wasn't for that hump, which is in a weird area, this seat would be pretty comfortable, but I found that hump didn't really jive with the back of my legs. Here you can see what it looks like with the glass taken out, with the window removed. You got this channel here that the glass would fit into, but with the windows out, you've got an open air experience and it's easy to get to your cargo box. You can take all the glass out of this thing for a full open air experience. Got a 2-inch receiver down there and a tailgate. But here's what it would look like if it had the glass in it. And like I said, this is pretty much like a hardtop Jeep for all intents and purposes. Pretty interesting. And also very expensive. But if this is your kind of thing, there's nothing else like it on the market right now. So check this out. This is an electric side-by-side, the XP Kinetic. 29.8 kilowatt hour battery pack. Polaris says it's good for 80 miles of range. 110 horsepower. The interior on this thing looks very much like a typical Ranger XP. You know, pretty much your standard fare in here. You can't really tell there's anything different about it. Got a really nice on-command system in there, and ride command, I think is what they call it actually. All your gauges and all that. I mean, it's a pretty cool machine, and it's all electric. So you can charge the thing up and ride it out in the woods for 80 miles. I think that cooler must be for the electric battery pack, I'm assuming. But otherwise, like I said, it looks very much like any other old machine. Now here is where I test the tires. Let's get to the Yamaha Grizzly. I like to test tires on this hill. Covered in wet mud and then topped with wet leaves. It's very slippery. So this is a good test of how is a tire going to bite and grab. And you can see that these Maxxis tires that come on the Grizzly have no problems whatsoever. Thumbs up on that. And then here's the area where I test the articulation. The camera never does it justice, but I like to cross this creek and kind of drop a tire out and see how the machine's going to articulate and handle those twisties in the woods. And I gotta say, the Yamaha Grizzly seems to do a pretty good job. I can rock the machine back and forth here a little bit, but for the most part, the tires want to keep themselves on the ground, and so that's good as well. Good job, Yamaha. Hey there, everybody. Got another review for you. I'm gonna be doing a sort of a short-term review on this machine right here because I think that it's gonna be really interesting. This is a brand new Yamaha Grizzly. Now this particular one, if you're a Yamaha fanboy or fangirl, you can tell by the color of this one that this is a 2023 model. In the showroom, which you probably just saw in some of that footage that I shot, there was a 2024 model sitting right next to this one. The 2024s have like a white and gray color scheme on them. Looks really awesome, actually. But with this one and the 24 sitting side by side, it was great because I was able to go over the machines and look for any differences for the 24 model year, and I could not find anything different at all. So as far as I can tell, the 2024 is going to be a complete carryover year for the Grizzly, other than the color of the plastics. So that's just subjective. If you like the white and gray a little better, which I think I kind of do, although this looks pretty good, I think I kind of like the white and the gray a little better, then go for a 24 model. If you can find a 2023, they do have some rebates available on the 2023s right now here at the end of the year to try and move them out and get rid of them. So anyway, let's talk about the Grizzly. So the Yamaha Grizzly is an ATV that we haven't had on the channel. You know, over the last, gosh, I don't know how many years, we've had a lot of different ATVs from just about all of the manufacturers, but I have never reviewed a Yamaha Grizzly. So I've had just a little bit of seat time on this machine this morning, and I just kind of want to give you some thoughts on this machine. And then, like I said, I'll put a few more miles on it, and I'll let you know what I think about this one compared to the other stuff that's on the market. Because if you go out to buy an ATV, and a utility ATV, let me be specific, you'll find that there are a lot of options out there. Sport ATVs, not so much anymore. Seems like most of the companies kind of got out of those. There's only a handful that you can find anymore. But when it comes to a utility ATV, there's a million options. So why would a guy go with a Yamaha Grizzly? Well, you probably just saw in that footage that the, ooh, here comes a delivery truck. Absolutely rolling. Amazon, they got somewhere to be. Those Amazon delivery drivers, they drive like Dale Earnhardt. Anyway, where was I? So the Yamaha Grizzly. So the thing about this machine that makes it so interesting to me is that in a lot of ways, this is an old machine. You know, there's a lot of things about this machine that have been the same for years. But at the same time, it does have updates that give it the modern touches that you expect from an ATV. Things like coilovers at all four corners that are adjustable. They have 5 positions you can set them to at each corner. LED headlights, for example. You've got lots of storage, which I'll show you in just a moment up close. You've got power points on here, a really great display. This is nice when you're riding at night because this halogen light will follow you where you're headed. 26-inch tires, really nice looking alloy wheels. I mean, it's got the things that you expect on a modern ATV, but the good parts about it, the engine, the transmission, so on and so forth, are carryover. They've had this for years. And, you know, some people believe that that's a good way to go. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So, what was I saying a minute ago? Oh, yeah, and that footage that we just showed you, the tires. I want to talk about the tires for a minute. This machine has Maxxis tires on it. Now, if you look at like the Suzuki King Quad, for example, a lot of your Honda ATVs, a lot of your Polaris ATVs, The tires they give you from the factory are trash, just absolute junk. And it's really nice to see that Yamaha gives you a good tire on here. That tire test that I have, a little area back here for tire testing, I mean, it's mud, it's wet, and it's got wet leaves on top of that, so it's really slippery. I was in two-wheel drive, and you saw me go right up that, no problem. I even backed down and stopped on the incline and then took back off again, barely even spun a tire. So these tires are performing really good in the sloppy stuff. Much better than the tires that will come on, say, a Suzuki King Quad or a Honda or something like that. Those Carlisle 489s, I think they are, that you see on so many ATVs, they're just not very good tires. They're flimsy, the lugs are too shallow, they can't really dig and bite. They're good for hard pack, you know, because they ride good and they're okay for hard pack. But if you're going to get off into some nastier terrain, you don't want those. Those things are garbage. But these Maxxis tires seem to be really good at traction. Hopefully they'll hold up well. You know, the sidewalls feel a little thicker and more robust, so time will tell. But I really like the fact that they put a good tire on this machine. The last thing you want to do is buy a brand new machine and then immediately have to spend $500 more bucks or more to get a decent set of tires. You know, nobody wants to have to do that. This is a good enough tire that you can wear these out and use them and then replace them with something even better later on. So that's nice. The wheels, man, check these wheels out. Those are really good looking wheels. These are 12-inch wheels, front and rear. This particular one has like an anthracite metallic paint on it. The 24s that I looked at had a black wheel on them. It's the same wheel, but it's painted black. But these just look really good. You got these nice center caps with the Yamaha logo there, chrome lug nuts. Just a really good looking wheel and tire package that's also functional. Kudos to Yamaha for that. That's awesome. The ride quality on this machine has been fantastic. You know, in just a little bit of seat time that I've gotten on it, it's really soft. Of course, these are set to the softest setting right now. So if you wanted them to be firmer, obviously you've got 4 more positions you can go up and make them firmer. But man, that thing is just so soft and plush. It feels really good out here in the rocks. I like to test ATVs down here in the creek because there's a lot of terrain down here. I've got some twisties, I got some mud, rocks, pretty much everything you're gonna see if you go trail riding, I've got right here in this creek, so it makes a great test bed. And this thing just rides so good. Really happy with the ride. The transmission, Ultramatic transmission, everybody knows it's the best in the industry. The thing about the Ultramatic that makes it so awesome is that it's got that constant belt engagement. And when you're riding this machine, you can tell it, because most ATVs that have CVTs in them, when you apply throttle, there's a moment there where you don't get any feedback, and then you can kind of feel it lock in and go, right? This machine doesn't do that. Because it's got that constant belt tension, it's so responsive. As soon as you get into the throttle, you go. You know, and if you let off the throttle, get back into it, you go. I mean, it's just, there's no slop in there, there's no lag in there. I mean, it's just, as far as riding it goes, it's pretty much perfect in that regard. The one knock that I have against it is that the engine braking is extremely aggressive on here. Now, you can debate this until the cows come home. Some guys like a lot of engine braking. Some guys don't like engine braking. I guess it depends on how you ride the machine and where you ride the machine. Where I ride here in Kentucky with hills and hollers and all that kind of stuff, a lot of aggressive engine braking not only is extremely annoying, but it can be a safety issue too, because when you crest the top of a hill and you're going back down and you're in loose material and you let off the throttle to slow down, the last thing you want is for your rear tires to start locking up on you. And that's what this machine right here would do. With that really aggressive engine braking, as soon as you let off the throttle, it tries to stop the machine. And that's not necessarily what you want. You know, it's a lot safer and a lot smoother to just modulate your speed with the brake lever, you know. Now there's other machines like the Arctic Cats, for example, that have that, was it CV Tech? I can't remember the name brand of it, the clutches they use, that don't really have a lot of engine braking. You know, when you're going down a hill, you let off the throttle, they'll coast. That's what I prefer. I think it's safer It's less annoying. You know, I like that better. Some guys like the engine braking. So it's subjective. It depends on what you want. But just keep in mind, a Yamaha is going to have extremely aggressive engine braking because of the fact that they've got that Ultramatic in there with the constant belt tension and all that. It's great when you're going. I don't really like it when you're trying to slow down. But regardless, this is probably unquestionably the best CVT in the entire industry. And Yamaha believes in that because they give you a 10-year warranty on the belt in that CVT. So there you go. So what else can we talk about here? I'm going to get the camera and come over and give you a close-up now because I want to go over just a couple of things I don't like, and then we'll finish up with the highlights of this machine. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go over the things that I don't like about this machine right off the bat, because there's not very many of them. It's a really great ATV, but there's a few things, you know, no ATV is perfect, and there's a few things I can't stand. All right, so here's the first one, and this is the biggest one that bothers me. If you look at this brake lever, okay, you got a brake lever over there for your front brakes. You got a brake lever over here for your rear brakes. On every other ATV I've seen lately, you've got a parking brake, emergency brake, whatever you want to call it, built into this mechanism where you can pull this like that and like set a mechanism to hold the machine in place and lock the brake down for safety. And this machine does not seem to have one. At least I can't figure it out if it does. It doesn't look to me like it has any way to actually lock it down using the brakes. Instead, they want you to rely on the park position right there on the transmission. Now, I don't like that. And here's the reason I don't like that. This transmission is notchier than the one on the Suzuki, okay? When it comes to shifting quality, the Suzuki beats this Yamaha hands down. I mean, this thing is extremely notchy. It reminds me a lot of the notchy. So I have found that when I'm on an incline and I need to stop the machine and just hop off for a second, there's no way to set a park brake. So you got to go to park in the transmission, and it doesn't want to go into park when it's sort of in a bind on an incline like that. So you end up having to kind of feather it a little bit and let it roll while you're tugging on this to get it to go back into park. And that's really annoying. It's also not as safe, and it can't be good for the transmission if you're doing that over and over again for years. You know, I hated that Can-Am Outlander. It was a piece of junk, but one good thing I'll say about it is they had a park position on their transmission, but they also had a park brake that you could set up here. So you could set it in park and or lock the park brake, and it was completely safe. You could hop off the machine. It wasn't going to go anywhere. It was easy on the transmission. That's the way it should be done. I have no idea, you know, why in the world you would build an ATV without a park brake on it. Especially the way things are these days with all these safety conscious people out there just looking to file a lawsuit over something. I just can't believe they don't have a park brake on here. That's nuts. But anyway, that's the biggest thing that drives me crazy about this. And the second thing would be the shifter, which I just kind of went over. It's just notchy. It doesn't shift well. Maybe it'll break in. Maybe after, you know, if somebody rides this, you know, a lot of miles, maybe it'll smooth out and it'll break in some. But right now, it's not bad, but it's definitely not good either. I still prefer it over a Polaris shifter. Polaris has the worst shifter in the industry, have had for at least 15 years that I know of. This is better than that, but this could be a lot better. Suzuki has it down pat, man. The Suzuki shifter is nice. Really, really nice. Something else that I will mention is the heat coming out of this thing. Now you can see that it's got full panels, and it's like that on the other side too. There's a little bit of a slot here to let some heat out, and you can see what it is that's right there behind that slot. You guessed it, that's the exhaust. And so you feel that. Okay, now it's the end of December out here, and the temperature was 30 degrees Fahrenheit this morning. And right now it's in the 40s Fahrenheit, so it's not a hot day out here. And I can ride this thing for 5 minutes and my legs are already hot. So I can only imagine that in the summertime, June and July, when it's 90 degrees Fahrenheit, this thing is going to roast somebody. You're definitely going to want to wear boots or pants when you ride this, regardless of how hot it is outside, because this thing puts out a tremendous amount of heat. And that's something else I don't understand. They tilted the head of the engine forward. Arctic Cat tilted it backward, which makes more sense because that way you've got a really short little exhaust pipe back here and it doesn't transfer any heat into the rider. For some reason, Yamaha tilted theirs forward, so you got a long exhaust pipe and you got all this heat coming out right here where you don't want it. That's kind of a negative. Like I said, it's one of them things that's, you know, some people might not care as much, but to me, I don't like having a lot of heat coming out on my legs when I'm riding an ATV. And then lastly is just the fit and finish. The fit and finish on this thing is nowhere near a Suzuki. I mean, look at this. You got all these big gaps. This thing right here, I don't know what the deal is with that. Looks like it's supposed to snap into something, but it won't. You got a lot of fitment issues up here. Look at that. I mean, this is the cover that goes over that headlight, and that's real cheap looking. I mean, the fit and finish on this machine is just not nearly as good as a Suzuki, or a Honda for that matter. Kind of surprising because Yamaha is one of the names that's been in the game forever, you know. But so if that bothers you, but most people probably don't care. For the price of these things, I just think they should take a little more time and do better fit and finish on them. You'll notice that on the seat, you don't have a latch. Most ATVs have a latch, a spring-operated hinge or a latch back here. This one doesn't. It just lifts up. Look at that. No latch of any kind. So you got to be real careful if you're transporting this thing to make sure, and it's even hard to do with one hand, but you got to make sure that thing pops in, and you got to hope and pray that seat doesn't come loose when you're transporting this thing down the highway. I can see how this seat would be easier to lose than seats on other machines. That's sort of the negative stuff that I've found so far. Like I said, not a whole lot because it's a great ATV. No ATV is perfect, but if Yamaha would fix those things, they would be real close to having a perfect ATV. So let's go over the good stuff. You've got a 2-inch receiver hitch, which you can see, I took this out of my pickup truck. That's what most people want to do. If you're going to work an ATV, that's what you want to do. You want to be able to use the same hitches that you use on your SUV or your truck on your ATV, right? That way you don't have to buy separate ball mounts and accessories and things just to use with your ATV. You want to be able to use the same stuff. So a 2-inch receiver hitch is the only way to go. You would be surprised how many ATV manufacturers there are that are still not doing this. I looked at a brand new Kawasaki Brute Force and it didn't even have a hitch on it. It had the old-fashioned drawbar style setup back there. Just ridiculous. The Polaris machines, brand new Polaris machines, they have like a little 1 1/4 inch hitch back there. You can buy adapters, but you shouldn't have to do that. Why would you not just put a 2-inch receiver on here, right? Suzuki got it right. Yamaha got it right. That's the only way to go. So I love that. You can see it's got independent rear suspension. Like I said, they are adjustable. You've got collars down there on the bottom where you can set it in and out, make it stiff, make it loose, or excuse me, softer. So that's great. You got 4-wheel disc brakes. So there's actually a disc brake in here and in here. That's okay. That's better than drum brakes, but Suzuki did a better job on that because they've got that wet bath sealed brake inside the differential. Don't quote me on that, but I think Kawasaki does the same thing. That's the best way to do it because then you never have to worry about the rear brakes ever. But having discs on both sides is still better than having drums, so I won't knock Yamaha too bad for that. Your maintenance is going to be easy on this, and that's a big point I'm going to make here in just a minute. You can see a bolt right in there, and you got a check bolt and you got a drain bolt on the bottom, so it's real simple and easy to do the maintenance back here when you need to. There's a storage cubby, LED tail light, so you got all the stuff that you need and the stuff that you want back there. Let's go up to the front real quick. Again, more of the same. You've got LED lights, which is awesome. Really cool looking grill on this thing. It's pretty easy to mount a winch in there, and lots of room in there for a winch. So you can put a 3,500 pound winch, 2,500 pound winch, whatever you want in here. There's a mount you can buy for about 50 bucks, and then Any winch you want pretty much will go in there. Front diff, easy to get to, easy to do your maintenance on. Again, you got adjustable coilovers. This one does have some guards here for your CVs, so that's nice. Pretty much everything you need up front as well. All right, let's go up here and talk about the rider's position here and the stuff that you're looking at when you're on this machine. All right, I'm gonna turn this on because I wanna show you one of the things that I love about this. So this display is probably one of the best in the industry right now. All right, the Honda wasn't too bad. This one is better. The Suzuki was a joke. The Polaris, kind of a joke. I don't know what the deal is with those manufacturers, but anyway, there's certain information that you want to have. You can see right now I'm looking at the coolant temperature. That's something you really need to know. If you're riding these things out in the woods and all that, you need to know this kind of stuff, you know? You've got a clock here so you can keep track of time when you're out on the trail, hour meter, voltage for your battery, your electrical system. There's your coolant temp again and all that. You got an odometer, you got trip odometers up here, fuel, your speed. All of your transmission positions are over here. Low, high, neutral, reverse. It's all right here lit up when you're in those particular transmission settings. So you don't have to look over here all the time. You know, you can look right there and shift. Obviously, you've got warning lights and all that. But the point is, you've got information in here that you need. And it's just a really nice looking display and it's easy to use. You got 3 buttons here that are really easy to figure out. I didn't even open the manual. I figured out how to set all this stuff immediately. This is the way it should be done. I've had some ATVs on this channel over the last few years, brand new ATVs that didn't have half of this information on their displays, and it's just ridiculous. I don't know, again, why would you make an ATV like that? Why not give people who are buying these things, spending all this money on them, give them the information they need? I want to know how hot my engine is running, you know? Especially in the summertime. I'm out riding in the mud, my radiator's getting full of junk and all that. I want to know how close I'm getting to overheating before I overheat. You know, this is great. Good job, Yamaha. The other companies need to copy that. Anyway, standard issue over here, lights, starter, your overdrive. So if you're in, say, differential lock mode and you need to go a little bit faster, you can override the natural limiter that's built into this thing and go a little faster temporarily by holding that button. Kill switch for safety. You do have hydraulic fluid reservoirs on your front and your rear brake, so that's good. At least they did that. They still should have put a park brake over here, but at least they did that. And then over here is your 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, and then you push that in, you've got your locker for your front right there. That's something I want to talk about very briefly. A lot of ATVs, like your Can-Ams and so forth and so on, they're using these fancy limited slip style front differentials. I mean, that's all great and everything. Look, it's an ATV. You're not going to be riding this on the highway. You're not going to be driving it in the snow to work. This is an off-road machine. If somebody gets to a point where they want their front end locked, let them lock it. You know, I want to be able to push a button and actually physically lock the front end. This will work way better than anything else on the market that doesn't have a real locker. This is the way to do it. There's a few manufacturers that give you a real selectable locker, and there's a few manufacturers that don't. If you're riding in really rough terrain, mud, and that kind of stuff, I recommend buying an ATV where you can actually lock the front end, okay? But anyway, other than that, it's pretty, you know, simple over here. Easy to use the 4-wheel drive system. Now, throttle lever. A lot of people complain about the Polaris one because it's plastic. This one's not plastic. You can see it's metal and it's coated in rubber here. But I don't like the angle of it. See how far out it is? Look, I got big hands. And look how far I have to reach my thumb out to get to that. That's ridiculous. Why, again, why would you do this? That should be like over here to start with and then have your range of motion. I'm gonna have to look and see if this is adjustable, but you know, again, I'm like a 6'3" guy. I got pretty big mitts on me and I have to reach like all the way over here as far as I can go with my thumb to get a good grip on that. I can imagine that a smaller person would probably get really fatigued riding this thing, you know, for a few hours. It's the little things like this that you don't think about until you've been on a lot of different brands, okay? I've seen some brands where This throttle lever is over to the handle, like over this way a little farther, and it's sort of like its natural resting position at idle is farther in like that. And so imagine, if you will, it's kind of like, it'd be like this. See, that's really easy to do then, you know? So anyway, some people aren't gonna think that's a big deal. I think it's a big deal because I like to go out and ride. We might put 70 or 80 miles on one of these things in a couple of days. We're on these things for a while, and I wanna be comfortable, right? And if you're doing this all day long, it's gonna cramp you up pretty quick. But other than that, you know, this is pretty much what you got up here. It's pretty simple. Storage, nice amounts of storage. It's got a tether on it so you don't lose it, but you can put stuff down in there and cover it up with that cap. You do have storage in here too. There's the owner's manual and all that good stuff, but you got a good amount of storage here right in front of you, which is good. And then you've got a storage cubby like I showed you out back if you want to put a strap or some, you know, recovery gear or something back there. The racks on the Grizzly, as you can see, are metal. Don't have any plastic covers on them. I don't mind this. The plastic covers look a lot nicer, but I find they're not as functional anyway. On the Suzuki, I ended up taking the plastic cover off of the front, so I don't mind this. It doesn't look as nice, but you know what? These things are sometimes all about function and not form, and this is okay with me. I like this because if you got a load up here, it keeps it from shifting and scratching up your plastic, so I like that. Nice steel rack back there. Heavy duty steel rack back here as well. You got 200 pounds of capacity back here and a little over 100 up there. Color on this thing is kind of cool, I guess. The more I look at it, the more I like it. But this black, look how it's, I don't know if the camera's showing it or not, but look how easy it scratches. That's the only bad thing about black plastic. If you look at it the wrong way, it's gonna scratch up. Again, I like the 26-inch Maxxis tires and everything. I mean, it's a nice ATV. One very important thing I forgot to mention, how in the world could I forget this? Power steering. So this machine does have power steering, and the power steering is much better than the Suzuki. Although I don't know how it couldn't be, because the power steering on the Suzuki King Quad doesn't feel like it even exists. Very, very little assistance in the power steering on the Suzuki machine. That's not the case with the Yamaha. Power steering on this is great. Gives you just the right amount of feedback and the right amount of assistance. It's not twitchy or anything like that. The power steering feels great on this Yamaha Grizzly. So I haven't gotten on the throttle yet because it's a brand new machine and they have a break-in period they're supposed to go through, and I don't want to ruin that. But I think that when this thing is broken in and we can really get on it, I think it's going to be just fine as far as power and speed goes. I can tell you that riding it down the creek here in low range, it's got a lot of low end torque. You barely have to get on that throttle to crawl over rocks and obstacles. Tons of low end torque. In fact, the combination of the torque and the fact that it's got that Ultramatic transmission in here, I think the low end is probably a little better than the Suzuki King Quad. Again, I can't talk about the top end because I'm not going to wear this thing out right now being a brand new machine. But at low speed, this thing I think is better than the Suzuki King Quad. I think it does feel like it's got more power and more ability to just crawl over stuff. Gonna have no problems at all crawling around in the woods if you're going hunting with this or whatever you're going to do with it. If you're out on slow speed, technical terrain, you're not going to have any problem with the power out of this at all. If you're hauling stuff with it, pulling a little utility trailer or whatever, this is going to be just fine. All right, last point I want to talk about, and this is a big deal also, is maintenance. Look, people that buy these things often live out in rural areas, right? Not everybody who's buying an ATV lives in the city. In fact, I would be willing to say that most people who buy ATVs don't live in the city. People who buy these things live in rural areas. You might be 50 miles one way from the nearest dealership. So a lot of guys want to do their own maintenance. You don't want to have to load this thing up and drive every time you need a service interval, you know, to be completed on this thing. So maintenance is a big deal. And when you look at the ATVs that are out there, there's a couple of manufacturers that come to mind, Polaris and Can-Am, who just do not care about that at all. They do not care if they make maintenance easy for the owner or not. I mean, they just don't. And then you've got some other manufacturers who obviously thought about that, you know. The Suzuki was a piece of cake to do maintenance on, and this Yamaha looks like it would be the same way. The oil filter is a spin-on oil filter. You can stand right here and see the oil filter. It's right there on the front of the engine. I can stand here and look at it. It'd be easy to get in there and twist it off. If you had to get a wrench in there, you could easily reach in there and twist it off and spin your new filter on, no big deal. Got an oil drain bolt right underneath. You go through the skid plate, you can drain the oil very easily. The front differential and the rear differential, like I showed you, you can easily see the fill and the drain ports on the differentials. The air filter is right here underneath this cover. You just pop this cover off, boom, you're right there to it. So you can tell that Yamaha thought about maintenance on this machine. And if you owned one of these, it wouldn't drive you crazy doing your own maintenance at home. You could just order the Yamalube maintenance kits on Amazon or somewhere like that and have them delivered to your house, and you could just do it at home all by yourself. No big deal. Keep a notebook. That's what they were telling me, you know, at the dealership. If you're going to buy something like this for the warranty, you just keep a little notebook, log every time you do a service interval. No big deal. Okay, but I appreciate that they took the time to make maintenance something that's easy to do. The other companies should take note of that and do that also. I've heard guys on YouTube videos and on forums who own Polaris machines or whatever, complaining about how hard it is to even get to the oil filter. You know, and that Can-Am Outlander we had, that 570 DPS, nightmare to do maintenance on. Don't even get me started on that. So, you know, I appreciate that they took the time to make maintenance pretty easy on this. In fact, if you want to check your oil, there's a cover right here. Look at that. You just turn it with your fingers. You can pull this out and you can check your oil level right there. You don't have to take plastics off the machine or anything. You got this, whoo, as I drop it, you got this nice little cover here that makes that a piece of cake. Boom, easy to go. So anyway, the maintenance is easy on this machine. That's a good thing. The Suzuki, also easy to do maintenance on. Honda wasn't too bad either. You can really tell the Japanese brands versus all these other guys out there. You can tell that there's a difference in mentality and thought going into how they engineer and build these things. This is not going to be the fastest, most hardcore ATV on the market. Neither is a Suzuki, and neither is a Honda. None of those Japanese brands are building the biggest, fastest, most awesome, most high performance machines out there. But you can tell that when you buy one of those ATVs from those brands, that it's going to last forever. You know, the engineering, the design, all of that goes into those machines, definitely a step ahead of Polaris and Can-Am and all those other companies. So, you know, do you buy an ATV that's going to last you forever? You can keep it for 30 years. You can do your own maintenance at home very easily. It's just going to be a great companion. Or do you buy an ATV from a brand that's going to be problematic, but it's going to be fast? You know, when it's running, it's going to be fast. It's going to be sporty when it's running. You know, just some guys just want the most horsepower they can get. Other guys want something that's going to last forever. And that's what I think this Yamaha Grizzly would do. I think this will be an ATV kind of like a Honda or a Suzuki, where it will just last forever. So there you go, my initial thoughts on this machine. Hey, I'll put some miles on it, get it through the break-in period, and we'll do an update later on, and I'll let you know how she's doing as we go through the winter time here. But the Yamaha Grizzly, I think, is a really good ATV overall, as far as comparing this to the Suzuki King Quad, because I think those two machines would be the most direct, directly compared machines. Like if you're out there shopping for them, I think this and the Suzuki King Quad 750 probably are the two machines that line up the closest to each other. There's good and bad with both, you know. I like the tires on this better, for example. I kind of like the transmission on this better, for example. You know, I like the fact that this has LED headlights in it. There's certain things about this that I like better than the Suzuki King Quad, but I like the shifter on the Suzuki way better, you know. So there's just, I wish you could take like all the ATVs out there and all the good things about them and combine them into one. Wouldn't that be great? Let me ride this thing for a little while and I'll be able to more accurately tell you which one I think I would go with. Right now, I still kind of like the Suzuki King Quad 750 a little better. But, you know, give me some time with this and I'll let you know. Anyway, if you got one of these machines, drop a note below. Let me know what you think about it, how it's held up for you. That's all I got for now. We'll talk to you later.